All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into cybersecurity.
Okay.
And, we all use search engines every day, but
Right.
you sent over this memo about a search engine called Shodan, and
Yeah.
I have to say it's really piqued my interest.
Yeah, it's a fascinating tool.
Yeah.
Um,
How is Shodan different from, like, Google or Bing?
well, it's really in a league of its own. Um, while typical search engines help you find websites,
Right.
Shodan helps you find, well, everything else connected to the internet.
Okay.
So think about all those devices that make up the Internet of Things.
Mm-hmm.
Webcams and servers,
Right.
industrial control systems.
Wow.
Shodan can find them.
Okay, so it's like a search engine for the hidden internet. The
Exactly.
stuff that most people don't even realize is online.
Yeah, and what's even more fascinating is that
Huh.
Shodan doesn't just find these devices. It can actually analyze them for security vulnerabilities.
Oh, wow.
So imagine being able to pinpoint, the weak spots in a server configuration
Mm,
or uncover a device that's using outdated software,
right.
something that's easily exploitable.
So this memo that you've shared mentions vulnerability exposure.
Yeah,
Is that what it's talking about?
that's one way to put it.
So like Shodan is showing you exactly where your network is at risk.
Yeah, you can think of it like that.
Okay.
It gives you that visibility,
Right.
and it's not just a surface level scan.
Right.
Shodan digs deep.
Okay.
It analyzes the technical details of exposed services.
Oh, wow.
The communication protocols they use.
Okay.
It's the kind of information that a hacker would drool over.
Hmm.
But in the hands of security professionals, it's invaluable for protecting those systems.
So it's like having a blueprint of your digital infrastructure,
Precisely.
but with all the potential weak points highlighted.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that brings us to another key feature
Okay.
that's highlighted in the memo, activity tracking.
Okay. So what's that?
So Shodan can monitor network traffic patterns
Mm-hmm.
and alert you to anything suspicious. So let's say you see a sudden surge in data transfer from a particular device
Right.
at an odd hour.
That.
That could be a red flag,
Okay.
a sign that something's not right.
So it's not just about finding vulnerabilities.
Right.
It's also about seeing how those vulnerabilities might be exploited in real time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that kind of monitoring can be critical for stopping a cyber attack
Right.
before it does serious damage.
Wow. Okay.
Think of it like a security camera for your entire network.
Okay.
You're not just recording what's happening, you're actively watching for suspicious behavior
Right.
and ready to respond.
So the memo also mentions anomaly detection.
Yeah,
Is that related to activity tracking or is that something completely different?
it's definitely related,
Okay.
but it takes things a step further.
Oh.
Anomaly detection uses sophisticated algorithms to analyze network traffic
Right.
and identify behavior that deviates from the norm.
Okay.
So this could be anything from a sudden spike in failed login attempts to a change in data transfer patterns that might signal a data breach.
Oh, wow.
That's in progress.
So let me see if I've got this straight.
Sure.
Shodan helps you find vulnerabilities.
Right.
It shows you how those vulnerabilities might be exploited,
Yeah,
and then it alerts you when something fishy is actually happening.
you got it.
Okay.
And to top it all off, Shodan can create visual maps
Okay.
of all these connections and protocols.
Wow.
So think of it like a map of your digital city
Okay.
with all the roads and buildings representing your network infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Shodan helps you visualize the potential attack vectors,
Okay.
the pathways a hacker might take to infiltrate your system.
That's a really helpful analogy. I think it makes it easier to understand how all these pieces fit together.
Good.
But I have to ask, with all this power at their fingertips, wouldn't it be tempting for someone to use Shodan for less than noble purposes?
That's the double-edged sword of any powerful technology.
Right.
While Shodan is an invaluable tool for security professionals, it's important to remember that it can also be used by those with malicious intent.
Of course.
So that's why responsible use and strong ethical considerations are so crucial
Right.
in the world of cybersecurity.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
But for now, let's focus on the positive.
Okay.
The memo dives into how Shodan is used for specific security practices.
Right.
We've talked about vulnerability exposure and activity tracking.
Mhm.
But what about this idea of Internet of Things security?
Right.
It feels like that's becoming more and more important every day.
You're absolutely right. The Internet of Things is expanding rapidly.
Right.
And with it, the potential attack surface for cyber criminals is growing exponentially.
Yeah.
We're talking about billions of
Yeah.
interconnected devices,
Wow.
many of which were not designed with security as a top priority.
It's like leaving the doors and windows of your house wide open and
Yeah.
hoping no one notices.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
And that's where Shodan comes in.
It-
It can help identify vulnerable IoT devices on your network
Mm-hmm.
and highlight potential risks before they turn into major security breaches.
So let's say I have a bunch of smart home devices.
Okay.
A smart refrigerator, a smart thermostat, some security cameras.
Right.
How exactly would Shodan help me secure those?
Let's imagine you have a smart refrigerator
Okay.
with a vulnerability that allows remote access
Okay.
to its control system. Maybe it's a software flaw,
Mm-hmm.
or perhaps it's using default logging credentials
Right.
that are easily guessed.
Okay.
Shodan can scan for those specific types of vulnerabilities
Okay.
and alert you to the fact that your refrigerator is a potential target.
That's incredible. I never would have thought that my refrigerator could be a gateway for hackers.
Yeah. It's a scary thought,
It is.
but it's a reality.
So what happens next? Let's say Shodan finds this vulnerability.
Right.
What can I actually do about it?
So that's where the memo's emphasis on mitigating risks comes in. Shodan doesn't just point out the problem. It can help you find solutions.
Oh. Yeah.
So in the case of your vulnerable refrigerator,
Right.
you might need to update its firmware,
Okay.
change the default login credentials,
Mm-hmm.
or even isolate it on a separate network segment
Okay.
to limit potential damage.
So it's not just about finding the needle in the haystack.
Right.
It's also about knowing what to do with the needle once you've found it.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key point highlighted in the memo:
Okay.
centralized control.
Okay.
As the number of IoT devices explodes,
Right.
it becomes increasingly difficult to manage their security individually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You need a way to monitor, update, and control all of them from a central location.
It's like having a control panel for your entire smart home ecosystem.
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
And that's essentially what Shodan enables.
Ah.
It allows you to see the big picture
Right.
of your IoT security posture,
Okay.
identify potential weak points, and take action to mitigate risks before they become major problems.
This is all really fascinating stuff,
Yeah.
but I have to admit my head is starting to spin a little.
I
We've covered a lot of ground already,
Yeah,
and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
we have, but you're doing a great job of keeping up.
Well, thank you.
We've talked about how Shodan helps us find vulnerabilities,
Right.
track activity, and secure the Internet of Things.
Right.
But there's so much more to explore.
Okay.
This memo goes on to discuss some pretty advanced applications,
Okay.
from threat monitoring and web security evaluation
Okay.
to using artificial intelligence for cybersecurity.
All right, well, I'm ready to dive deeper.
Let's do it.
Let's see what else this memo has to offer.
We'll uncover the hidden depths of Shodan and its role in the ever-evolving world of cybersecurity.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay. So are you ready to kind of delve deeper into some of the more advanced capabilities of Shodan?
Yeah, absolutely. This memo you've shared, it really, it talks about this idea of threat monitoring,
Yeah.
which sounds pretty intense.
It is.
So what exactly does that entail?
Well, threat monitoring is all about being proactive
Okay.
in the face of cyber attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of waiting for something bad to happen,
Right.
you're actively looking for signs of potential threats
Okay.
and taking steps to prevent them.
But how does Shodan actually help with that? I mean, it's not like it can predict the future, right?
Well, it can't predict the future with absolute certainty,
Right.
but it can definitely provide valuable insights
Okay.
into emerging threats.
Okay.
And Shodan does this through something called behavioral analysis.
Behavioral analysis. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds intriguing. Break that down for me.
Think of it like this. Every hacker, every cyber criminal group,
Mm-hmm.
they have their own unique way of operating.
Okay.
You know, they have preferred tools and techniques and targets.
Mm-hmm.
They leave behind digital fingerprints, so to speak.
So Shodan can analyze those fingerprints. Let's identify potential attackers before they strike.
That's exactly right.
Wow, that's amazing.
So Shodan can track known malicious IP addresses, identify servers that are hosting malware,
Right.
and even detect patterns of activity that are consistent with reconnaissance efforts,
Okay.
the kind of things that hackers do before they launch a full-blown attack.
So it's like having a digital detective
Yeah.
who's constantly monitoring the dark corners of the internet for signs of trouble.
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
The best part is,
Yeah.
Shodan doesn't just alert you to these potential threats.
Mm.
It also provides you with the information you need to respond effectively.
So let's say Shodan detects a suspicious pattern of activity
Right.
that looks like a hacker is targeting my network.
Yeah.
What kind of information would it provide me?
It would give you detailed information about the source of the attack,
Okay.
the type of malware being used,
Hmm.
the potential vulnerabilities being targeted,
Uh.
and even the specific commands and tools the attacker is using.
Oh, wow.
All of this information allows you to take very targeting steps
Okay.
to block the attack,
Mm-hmm.
patch vulnerabilities,
Right.
and strengthen your defenses.
So it's like having a battle plan,
Exactly.
like a roadmap for how to defend yourself against this specific cyber attack.
That's exactly what it is.
That's incredible.
And that brings us to another crucial aspect of threat monitoring,
Okay.
and that is effective response.
The memo touched on that. It said something about Shodan helping coordinate responses to cyber attacks.
Right.
What does that mean exactly?
Okay. Imagine a scenario where your organization is hit with a ransomware attack.
Okay.
Critical files are encrypted,
Right.
and the attackers are demanding a hefty ransom
Mm-hmm.
for the decryption key.
Oh, gosh.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Every minute counts.
That sounds terrifying. I can only imagine the chaos.
It can be a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
But in this situation, Shodan can be your lifeline.
Oh.
It can help you quickly identify the affected systems,
Okay.
isolate them to prevent further spread,
Mm-hmm.
and even connect you with security experts and resources
Okay.
to help you contain the damage and potentially recover your data.
So it's not just about detecting threats.
Right.
It's also about having the tools and resources to fight back effectively.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where Shodan really shines.
Okay.
It gives you the visibility,
Mm-hmm.
the intelligence,
Okay.
and the connections you need to respond quickly and decisively
Right.
to cyber attacks.
Okay.
It empowers you to take control of the situation and minimize the impact
Yay.
of security breach.
I'm starting to understand why Shodan is considered such a valuable tool
Yeah,
for security professionals. It's like having a secret weapon in the fight against cybercrime.
it is a powerful tool.
Right.
And like any powerful tool, it's important to use it wisely and responsibly.
Right, of course.
But in the right hands, Shodan can be a game changer
Okay.
for cybersecurity.
This memo also talks about something called web security evaluation,
Yes.
which sounds like a whole other level of complexity.
It's a deep topic.
So what's that all about?
Web security evaluation is all about assessing the security of your web applications.
Okay.
You know, your websites, the servers that host them.
Yeah.
It's like giving your digital storefront a thorough security inspection,
Okay.
looking for any cracks or weaknesses
Right.
that could be exploited by attackers.
Okay, but how does Shodan help with that? I mean, it's not like it can read code or find bugs in software.
You're right, Shodan isn't a code analysis tool,
Okay.
but it can provide valuable insights into the security posture
Okay.
of your web applications from an external perspective.
I'm not sure I follow. Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you have a web application
Okay.
that's using an outdated version of a content management system,
Okay.
like WordPress or Drupal.
Mm-hmm.
These systems are constantly being updated to patch security vulnerabilities.
Right.
If you're running an older version, you're essentially leaving yourself open to attack.
Okay, so Shodan could detect that I'm running an outdated CMS
Exactly.
and alert me to the potential risk.
That's right.
Okay.
It can also identify misconfigurations,
Okay.
like open ports or default login credentials.
Right.
That could make your web applications easy targets for attackers.
Okay.
It can even scan for known vulnerabilities in specific software versions
Oh, wow.
and alert you to potential exploits
Okay.
that could be used against your systems.
So it's like having a security consultant
Yeah,
who's constantly monitoring your website for potential weaknesses.
that's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
And Shodan doesn't just point out the problems.
Right.
It also provides you with guidance on how to fix them.
Oh.
So it can recommend security best practices,
Okay.
link you to relevant security advisories,
Right.
and even suggest specific tools and techniques for hardening your web applications.
That's incredibly helpful. But the memo also mentioned penetration testing. Is that related to web security evaluation,
It is.
or is that something entirely different?
Penetration testing is a specific type of web security evaluation
Okay.
that involves simulating real-world attacks
Okay.
to identify vulnerabilities.
So it's like putting your defenses to the test,
Exactly.
seeing how they hold up against a determined attacker.
That's right.
So it's like hiring a team of ethical hackers
Yeah,
to try to break into your system.
that's a good analogy.
Okay.
Penetration testers use a variety of techniques
Right.
to try to exploit vulnerabilities
Okay.
in your web applications, your network infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
even your physical security measures.
Wow.
The goal is to identify weak points before real attackers find them.
Right. So if Shodan can't find bugs in code or break into systems itself,
Right.
how does it help with penetration testing?
So while Shodan can't perform the actual penetration testing itself,
Right.
it provides valuable information that can be used to plan and execute these tests.
Oh, okay.
So it can help identify potential targets,
Okay.
map out network infrastructure,
Right.
and even uncover vulnerabilities that might not be obvious through traditional testing methods.
So it's like giving the penetration testers a head start.
Exactly.
A blueprint of the target environment and a list of potential weak points to exploit.
Precisely. Shodan can also be used to monitor the progress of a penetration test,
Okay.
track the activities of the testers,
Mm-hmm.
and assess the effectiveness of your security controls.
Wow, Shodan really is a versatile tool.
It is.
It seems like it can be used for almost every aspect of cybersecurity.
It's an incredibly powerful tool, and its applications are constantly expanding.
Right.
As the threat landscape evolves and new technologies emerge,
Mm-hmm.
Shodan continues to adapt and provide security professionals
Right.
with the insights they need to stay ahead of the curve.
This memo has been a real eye-opener. I never realized how much complexity and sophistication goes into the world of cybersecurity.
It's a fascinating field.
It is. But
Right.
with tools like Shodan at our disposal,
Right.
it feels like we're at least somewhat equipped to face the challenges ahead.
You're right. Cybersecurity is a constant arms race,
Right.
and the attackers are always looking for new ways to exploit vulnerabilities.
Of course.
But with the right tools, the right knowledge, and the right mindset,
Mm-hmm.
we can build a more secure and resilient digital world.
Well said. But, as we've been talking about all these sophisticated security practices,
Right.
I can't help but wonder how the average person, as someone who's not a cybersecurity expert,
Right.
can even begin to protect themselves.
That's a great point.
Right.
While Shodan is a powerful tool for professionals,
Right.
it also highlights the importance of basic cybersecurity hygiene for everyone.
Cybersecurity hygiene, what exactly does that entail?
It's all about adopting simple but effective practices
Okay.
that can significantly reduce your risk of becoming a victim of cybercrime.
Okay.
Things like creating strong passwords,
Mm-hmm.
being wary of phishing scams,
Right.
keeping your software updated, and backing up your important data are all essential steps that anyone can take.
So even if we don't have access to tools like Shodan,
Right.
we can still do a lot to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. A little bit of awareness and effort can go a long way
Right.
in the world of cybersecurity.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned a lot about Shodan and the broader landscape of cybersecurity.
Good.
But the memo you've shared covers so much ground. There's still a lot to unpack.
You're right. We've barely scratched the surface
Right.
of what Shodan can do.
Okay.
There are so many other fascinating applications to explore,
Okay.
from training employees on cybersecurity best practices
Right.
to using artificial intelligence to predict and prevent attacks.
Wow.
And of course, we can't forget about the ever-expanding world of the Internet of Things
Right.
and the unique security challenges it presents.
All right. Well, I'm ready to dive back in.
Let's do it.
Lead the way.
The world of cybersecurity is vast and complex. But with tools like Shodan and a commitment to learning and adapting,
Mm-hmm.
we can navigate it safely and securely.
So, as we've been talking about all this stuff with Shodan, I keep coming back to this idea of the Internet of Things.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of wild to think about how many devices
It is.
we have in our homes, in our workplaces that are all connected to the Internet now.
Absolutely. It really is a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
I mean, we're surrounded by smart devices these days.
Right.
Refrigerators, thermostats, security cameras, cars, you name it.
And the memo you shared talks about how Shodan can be used to identify vulnerabilities in those IoT devices.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how does that actually work in practice?
Well, that's the beauty of Shodan.
Okay.
It's designed to handle that incredible diversity of devices.
Right, because it's not like every device is the same.
Exactly. They're all different. They use different protocols, different operating systems.
Okay.
But Shodan uses a variety of techniques to scan the internet and identify those devices
Okay.
based on their characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
The ports they have, the protocols they use, even the type of data they transmit.
So let's say I have a smart security camera that I use to monitor my home.
Okay.
How could Shodan help me figure out if that camera is actually secure?
So let's imagine your camera is using a default password.
Okay.
One that's easily guessed.
Right.
or it has a known vulnerability that allows remote access.
Okay.
Shodan could identify those weaknesses
Okay.
by scanning the camera's network connection,
Okay.
analyzing its communication patterns,
Mm-hmm.
and comparing its characteristics to a vast database of known vulnerabilities.
So it's like Shodan is saying, hey, this camera is broadcasting information that suggests it might be an easy target.
Exactly.
Uh,
And that's the first step in mitigating the risk, right?
Right.
Once you're aware of the vulnerability, you can take steps to fix it.
Right, like change the password, update the firmware.
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe even isolate the camera on a separate network segment.
Right, to limit the damage.
Exactly.
Okay. The memo also talked about this idea of centralized control
Yes.
for IoT security. Why is that so important?
Well, think about it. You probably have dozens, maybe even hundreds
Oh, yeah.
of IoT devices in your home or workplace.
Right.
Trying to manage the security of each of those devices individually.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that would be...
It'd be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
You'd have to log into each device, check for updates, configure settings,
Right.
monitor for suspicious activity.
Mm,
It would be incredibly time-consuming and prone to errors.
that sounds awful.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's where centralized control comes in.
Okay.
Instead of managing each device separately,
Right.
you can use a platform like Shodan to get a holistic view of your entire IoT ecosystem.
Okay, so like a dashboard.
Yeah, like a dashboard,
Okay.
where you can see, okay, which devices are online,
Okay.
what software versions they're running, what vulnerabilities they might have,
Mm-hmm.
and even monitor their network activity in real time.
It's like having a control panel for your entire smart home.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's not just about convenience, it's also about security,
Okay.
right? Because by centralizing your IoT security management,
Right.
you can enforce consistent security policies across all your devices.
Okay.
You can deploy updates more efficiently
Okay.
and respond to threats more quickly and effectively.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But as we've been talking about all this, the average person like me,
Right.
how do we keep up with all this?
Well, you're right. It can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
But the good news is you don't have to be a cybersecurity expert
Okay.
to protect yourself and your devices.
Okay, so what can we do?
Well, first and foremost, create strong, unique passwords for all your accounts
Okay.
and use a password manager to keep track of them.
Got it.
Don't reuse the same password on multiple sites
Right.
and enable two-factor authentication whenever it's available.
Okay, good advice. What else?
Be wary of phishing emails and suspicious links.
Okay.
Don't click on anything that looks even remotely fishy.
Yeah.
And be careful what information you share online.
Right.
Remember, if an offer seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Okay.
And keep your software up to date.
Yeah.
Software updates often include those security patches that fix known vulnerabilities.
Right.
So don't ignore those update notifications
Okay.
and set your devices to install updates automatically whenever possible.
All right. Can do anything though.
Back up your important data regularly.
Okay.
In the event that something does happen and you do become a victim of cybercrime,
Right.
having a recent backup can be a lifesaver.
Right.
You can use an external hard drive, a cloud backup service, or a combination of both.
Great tips. I feel much more aware of the risks now
Good.
and definitely better equipped to protect myself.
That's what we want.
This has been a really insightful conversation.
It has.
I feel like I've learned a lot about Shodan.
Good.
And really about just the whole landscape of cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's a complex and evolving field,
It is.
but, knowledge is power. The more you understand about the threats and the tools that are available to combat them,
Mm-hmm.
the better equipped you'll be to navigate the digital landscape safely and securely.
Well said. Well, this deep dive into the world of Shodan has been really fascinating.
It's been my pleasure.
And I really appreciate your expertise on all this.
Happy to help.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.